Now we'll talk about how to optimize your Flash movies. There's two very important reasons why you want to optimize your Flash movies. First, if the file size of your Flash movie is too high, the movie will take a long time to download and may play slowly when your user is downloading the file. The second reason you need to optimize your Flash movies is that certain things in Flash movies tend to be very processor intensive, which means that the user's computer is limiting the playback speed of the animation. So even if you do have a low file size, your Flash movie could play slow on your user's computer. So here we'll talk about some tips where you can optimize your movies so you won't have those problems. Let's talk about some things that generally slow a movie down. Earlier in this title, we talked about how you can customize strokes. Those will slow down the playback a little bit and increase the file size of your Flash movies. You can use them, but just use them sparingly. Here's some other things that you would also want to use sparingly. Adjusting the alpha or transparency of a graphic, gradients, static text. If you have a lot of static text and you can get away with using device fonts, that'll optimize the playback of your movie and lower the file size. If you're not familiar with device fonts, we talked about them when we talked about working with text. Be cautious when you're using sound and video. Both sound and video tend to increase the file size of your movie significantly. Don't be afraid to use sound and video in your Flash movies, but just know that they might slow down the playback a little bit. Another thing that can slow down your Flash movies is bitmap graphics. One way you can use bitmap graphics and control the individual settings for each graphic. If you're going to use bitmap graphics, make sure you optimize them. And what I mean by optimize them is set the compression for the bitmap graphics. Now, as we talked about earlier, you could do that in your published settings and set a general compression for all of your bitmap graphics. But if you set different compression for each bitmap in your movie, you could end up saving a lot of file size. For example, you might be able to compress some bitmaps more than others. And the same works with sound. You might be able to compress some sound more than other sounds as well. Another way to optimize your Flash movie is to use symbols. Whenever you can, convert objects into symbols. And the last way I'm going to talk about is optimize your shapes. When you use the pen tool especially, you can create very complicated shapes in Flash. One way to optimize those shapes is to use the optimize shape command. Now on the stage, there are two graphics. On the stage in this file, there are two layers, the color layer and the bitmap layer. I'm going to hide the bitmap layer, so we just see the color layer, and we don't see the graphic in the color layer because it's inside of a movie clip. And the movie clip has a blend mode applied, so what I'm going to do is turn off that blend mode. I'm selecting the movie clip on the stage, and then in the blend mode drop-down, I'm going to choose normal. And you can see that these shapes have somewhat complicated curves. Now granted, this isn't very complicated, but I just want to show you how to use the optimize shape command. I'm going to double-click this movie clip to enter its timeline. And then what I'm going to do is deselect all the artwork by clicking in the pasteboard, and then I'm going to select the sky, or the blue shape. To optimize a shape, choose Modify, Shape, Optimize. Here we can control the smoothing of our curves. I'm going to drag this closer to maximum. This will reduce the file size of this shape by giving it more smooth curves and reducing some of the anchor points. I'm also going to choose Use Multiple Passes. This will take a little bit more time, it's a little bit slower, but it'll save us on the file size. I'm also going to leave Show Totals message checked. And that'll tell us how much Flash has optimized the shape. Let's click OK. The original shapes had 47 curves. The optimized shape has 20 curves. This is a 57% reduction. I'm going to click OK. The shape changed a little bit on the stage, but our file size also went down. So you don't have to apply the exact same settings when you optimize shapes, but there's one way you can save file size. When you optimize your Flash movies, the experience will be a lot better for the user, so it's worth the time that it takes.